Well, hello, my little monsters. I hope you are all doing well and you've been enjoying all my videos of the snow. The sun is shining now, but it's still -2 and very, very cold. So, today's chapter is chapter 10, The Battle of the Bears. So, if you remember, the girls and Moonface had gone up to where Goldilocks and the three bears are, and the bears were getting them to the land where Joe was trapped. So here we go with the story. Goldilocks, the three bears, the girls, and Moonface went out of the little cottage. How strange it seemed to see roses blossoming all over walls when ice and snow lay all around. The thing is, where do we go to find the polar bears? Said Goldilocks. Over there towards the sun, said Father Bear. Beth and Franny were surprised to see both the moon and the sun shining in the sky. They followed Father Bear, slipping and sliding and holding on to one another. It was very, very cold, and their noses and toes felt as if they were freezing. I know exactly what that feels like because it's so cold here. Suddenly, they saw the little snow house that Joe had built for the magic snowman. Look, said Father Bear, we'd better make for that. But before they got there, a white figure squeezed itself out of the snow house and saw them. It was the magic snowman. As soon as he saw the three bears and the others, he began to shout loudly and in a windy, snowy voice, "Enemies! Enemies! Hey, bears, come and send off the enemies!" "We're not enemies," yelled Moonface, and Goldilocks ran forward to show the snowman that she was a little girl. But Moonface pulled her back. He didn't trust that old snowman. The snowman bent his big fat body down and picked up great handfuls of snow. He threw one at Goldilocks and she ducked down as it passed over her and hit Baby Bear. "Ouch!" he said and sat down in a hurry. Then everything happened all at once. A crowd of white polar bears hurried out of their underground home to help the snowman, and soon the air was full of flying snowballs. The snow was hard and the balls hurt when they hit anyone. It wasn't one bit of good, the girls shouting that they were friends, not enemies. Nobody heard them, and soon there was a fierce battle going on. "Oh dear," gasped Beth, trying her best to throw straight. "This is dreadful. We shall never rescue Joe by behaving like this." But there really didn't seem anything else to be done. After all, if people are fighting you, you can't do much but defend yourself. And the three bears, the girls, and Moonface felt very angry at having hard snowballs thrown back at them. Smack, thud, biff, squish. The snowballs burst as they hit, and soon there was a great noise of angry oofs from the white bears and oohs from the three bears and yells from the children and screeches from Moonface, who acted as if he was mad, hopping about and yelling and kicking up the snow as well as throwing it. His big round face was a fine target for snowballs, and he was hit more than anyone else. Poor old Moonface. Now, whilst this fierce battle was going on, where do you suppose Joe was? As soon as he heard the cry of "Enemies! Enemies!" he had hidden in a corner, for he didn't want to be mixed up in any fight. When he saw the white bears going out and felt he was all alone, he began at once to think about escaping. He crept to the hole that led above ground. The battle was some way off, so Joe didn't see that the enemies were really his own friends, and if he had, he would have gone to join them all at once. What a terrible noise they were all making, he thought. It sounded like a battle between gorillas and bears to me. Not that I'm going near them, I'd be eaten up or something. I shall just run hard in the opposite direction and hope that I meet someone who will help me. So Joe, dressed in his big white woolly coat and looking just like a little white bear himself, crept off over the ice and snow, not seen by anybody. He ran as soon as he thought he was out of sight. He ran and he ran and he ran as far as his legs could carry him. But he met nobody. Not a soul out there was to be seen. Only a lonely seal lay on a shelf of ice, but even he dived below as soon as he saw Joe. And then Joe stopped in the greatest astonishment and stared as if his eyes might fall right out of his head. He had come to the cottage of the three bears, standing all alone in the middle of the snow and the ice. And of course, its roses were still blooming all around it, scenting the air. "I'm dreaming," said Joe. "I simply must be dreaming. A cottage with roses here in the middle of the snow. Well, I shall go and see who lives there. Perhaps they would give me something to eat and let me rest, for I'm very hungry and very tired." He knocked on the door, but there was no answer. He opened the door and went in. How he stared! There was no one to be seen at all, but on the table stood 3 bowls of steaming porridge, one big, one middle-sized, and one small. It was rather dark, so Joe lighted a big candle on the table. He then sank down into the biggest chair, but it was far too big, and he got up again. This story sounds familiar, don't you think? But it was far too big, and he got up again. He sat down in the next sized chair, but it was too piled up with cushions, so he got up to sit in the smallest chair. That was just right. And Joe settled down comfortably, but alas, his weight was too much for it, and the chair broke to bits beneath him. He looked at the delicious porridge and tasted the porridge in the biggest bowl. It was much too hot, and it burned his tongue. He tasted the next bowl, but that was far too sweet. But when he tasted the porridge in the little bowl, it was just right. So Joe ate it all up. Then he felt so sleepy that he thought he really must rest. So he went into the bedroom, lay down on the biggest bed. But it was far too big, so he tried the middle-sized one, which was far too soft. And then he went down and went down in the middle. So Joe lay down on the cot. And that was so small and warm and comfortable that he fell fast asleep immediately. At this time, the snowball fight was going on. The snowman was so big and the polar bears were so fierce that very soon the 3 bears and the children and Moonface were driven backwards. Then a snowstorm blew up, and the snow fell so thickly that it was quite impossible to see anything. Moonface called out in alarm, "Bears, Goldilocks, Beth, Franny, take hold of each other's hands at once and don't let go. One of us might easily be lost in this storm." That was like what was outside my house yesterday. It was so windy and so snowy. Sheesh. Everyone at once held hands. The snow blew into their faces and they could see absolutely nothing. Bending forwards, they began to walk carefully away from the white bears, who had stopped fighting now and were trying to find out where their enemies were. "Don't shout or anything," said Moonface. "We don't want the white bears to hear us in case they take us prisoner. They might not listen to the 3 bears. Move off and we'll look for some shelter till this storm is over." They were all very, very miserable. They were cold, rather frightened, and quite lost. They stumbled over the snow, keeping hold of one another's hands very firmly. They went on, and suddenly Goldilocks shook off Moonface's hand and pointed in front of them. "A light," she said in astonishment, and everyone stopped. I say, it's our cottage," shrieked Baby Bear in surprise and delight. "But who's inside? Someone's lit the candle." Do you guys know who it is yet? They all stared at the lighted window. Who was inside the cottage? Could the magic snowman have found it? Or the polar bears? Was it an enemy inside or a friend? The wind blew and the snowflakes fell thickly on everybody as they stood there wondering. "Ooh," shivered Moonface. "We shall get dreadful cold standing out here in the snow. Let's go in and find out who's there." So the father bear opened the door, and one by one they all trooped in, looking around the empty room, half afraid. And that is the end of the chapter. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have worked out who might be in the 3 bears' house. And I will read this next chapter tomorrow or the next day, and I will send it to you tomorrow or the next day. I hope you guys are enjoying the story. I hope you've had a really nice day today and you've been out having some good adventures. And I'll speak to you soon. Love you lots, guys. Bye.